Welcome everybody to our next session. It is really lovely to be here, and thank you very much for joining in. And today what we're going to is talking about energy. So what I'm going to do is just move my webcams out the way, hide all my webcams so I can't distract myself, and talk to you about energy. But before we get going, and let's hope that we can get going, move my slides. I always share a photograph with you, something that I've seen in the past my week. And so here's one that I saw on a wall, and I thought, gosh, wow, yes, happiness can be found in the smallest of things. It is our passion to transform your everyday routines into more meaningful rituals. And I thought, gosh, that seems to so apply to the work that you do in a hospice. So the everyday routines are so meaningful for the people who you're working for. And you may forget that, but we on the receiving end of your care certainly don't. And so I just thought, I saw that and I thought of all of you. So that's my picture for today. Just as a reminder of what we're doing, we do all the work that we've done so far sits within this Casita model. So I just wanted to remind ourselves that at the very basic stuff at the bottom, if you look, it says physical health. And then underneath that, you've got the foundations, the networks of informal relations, family, friends, and that you accept you as you are, with all the good stuff, all the shadow stuff, you as you are. If you work with you as you are, it's much easier to build your resilience rather than you as you would like to be. Because what we're working towards is the you would like to be, and doing that through sense making, through meaning, through getting aligned with what you want and how you want it, and that's on the ground floor. And then we've got the first floor where self-esteem, skills and humour sit, and we're going to be working a little bit on sense making and skills today. At the end we'll be thinking about relationships, and then of course up in the attic we've got other experiences yet to be discovered, and I hope that some of you have been having some of those on this journey, or will get some as we progress. So last time, what did we do last time? Last time I asked you to think about your wheel of life and to complete a wheel of life and to do some peer coaching. And I was just wondering, for all those who were there, and we have, who have we got on today? We have St Giles, Martletts, Ayrshire, St Christopher's, St Cuthbert, St Luke's, Rowcroft, and those who are just who I've written down, so I'm sure that there's some more of you. Welcome all of you. I'd love just you, as in your hospices, in your groups, and if you're by yourself, just think it through. What have you done to manage your wheel of life, to make it more balanced so that it doesn't turn over in a lumpy kind of way? And what I did was this. I saw that my family was lower than I wanted it to be. It was at a lower rating. It was more towards the centre rather than the outside. And so I went off, I had 3 days holiday break with my family, and I didn't take my laptop. I thought long and hard about it, and I thought if I take it, I'll work, and I won't be 100% attentive to them. So I'd love you now to just spend a minute in a pair sharing one of the things that you've done for yourself in the last month. And if you would like to pop it on the chat, that would be fabulous. I'm going to give you a minute. It's now 2:04 on my timer, so have a minute just to chat. Okay, so have we got anybody adding any comments, things that they've done? I can see taking a lunch break. Fantastic, that's really good. Walking the dog, joining an orchestra. That's great. Well done. If anybody wants to add any more to the chat about what they've been doing, please do so. And sorry for those of you who didn't join in before, but do go back and look at what we've done. You can see from the last webinar and any of the videos exactly what we did, so that you can do this for yourself and you can download all the materials that you need. Going to see grandchildren, keeping fit. Yes, that is next on my list, switching off. A 5K run. Wow, it's lovely to see people doing so many different things. Trinity Hospice, I can see that you've got some more, so we'll check in next month to see what you've been doing for yourselves. So what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to do a bit more peer coaching, if you see number 3 and 4, so harnessing energy. So I want to talk to you today about how you think about energy, and this is very aligned with the Wheel of Life work we did, so it's a way of catching up for some of you. So let's just turn back to what did I mean by peer coaching when we talked about it before. And when you sit and work with someone, the first thing you want to find out about is what a good outcome is. So if you've only got 7 minutes, which is what I'm going to give you, 7 minutes each, you'll need to find out what you can do in 7 minutes, because you can't change the world. And it's always good to look at what's working. We're hardwired for hard times, which means that we immediately turn to the negative. But sometimes it works to turn to what's positive and do more of that. And to certainly listen without interrupting. If you see somebody getting smaller or flinching, like me at the dentist this morning, it's worthwhile saying, I noticed as the drill was hitting the back of your teeth that was uncomfortable for you. So you just notice what's going on and see in someone's body language. What and how questions are important, and please try not to tell them what to do, because I know that that's very easy, but quite often we don't buy into ideas when they're not our own. So this is the framework that you can use as a reminder for those of you. So you set a goal, what would you like to achieve by the end of this session, and you discuss what's really going on, and then you think about options and you check buy-in. So if you want to make a quick note of the GROW model to help you in conversations later in this call, that might be useful. So just scribble goals, reality, options, will down as a guide if you would like to. So what are we going to do? I'm going to give you this really helpful model, which I found these two researchers, Learn Schwartz, have written The Making of a Corporate Athlete. And they've come out of sports psychology. One of them was an Olympian. And they started looking at what is it about energy that works best. So you have high energy at 12 o'clock, low energy at 6 o'clock. You've got positive energy at 3 o'clock, and at 9 o'clock you've got negative energy. And you can see that in each of all of these areas, if you're high positive, you're in performance zone. If you're positive low, you're in recovery. Low negative, it's burnout, I'm afraid. And negative high is survival. And you know, in a crisis, of course, we're going to be negative high energy, just to get ourselves through it. But what I'd love you to do now is just, if you haven't printed this out, please make a quick note of it. So high, low, negative, positive. Just make a quick note. And I'm going to ask you in twos, or if you're in a room with a bunch of post-it notes, what you're going to do once you've copied the model down, and leave me a note if you can't, if you want me to go back a slide. So I was just being distracted by chat, someone saying they couldn't hear me, and I guess it was because the audio was turned off. So make a note of this, and then what you're going to do is look at all these words. And what I would do is this, is divide the words up between you in the room. So you've got 6 layers of words, starting with defiant, optimistic, depressed, empty, proud, and relaxed, either in pairs or on a flip chart for the whole room. Just sort out, where do you put these words in the matrix that we had before? High, low, positive, negative energy. So give me a shout if you want me to go back one slide, or post me a note in the chat and let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to give you 5 minutes just to sort out these words. Where do they go? Because these are typically things that we feel at work. Everybody who's on a webcam, are you done? Do you want to give me a thumbs up if you're done or thumbs down if you're not done? Thumbs down. Okay, you want 2 more minutes? 2 more minutes? Thumbs up? Okay. Thank you. 2 more minutes. Okay. Don't worry about talking about everything, just bang them into a quadrant. So when you're done, is that done now? Yes, thumbs up? We're done? Great, okay. Thumbs up, Rowcroft? Yes? Okay. Do you know what I'd love is if you could grab a phone and take a photograph of what you've done. So can you take a photo? Has anyone got a phone there? Just take a photo of the words that you've sorted out. And if you could email them back to Marie, that would be great. And we can just see what everybody's done. And I'll make a collage of them all next time. So take a photo of what you've done. And we will move on. So let me just hide the webcams again. So if you want to know what is the answer to all this, is there an answer? It doesn't really matter where you put them, but the thing to think about is what that means to you, because we all have a range of energy and we all feel more energized sometimes than others, and it's interesting to track where that is in the day, and our energy changes depending on who we're with and what we're doing. My laptop is helpfully jammed, so just a sec. There we go. So you can now check your work, but actually this will change depending on who you're with, as I said, and what you're doing and the time of day. So where does your hospice expect you to be? Probably 100% of your working time, your employer likes you to be in a high energy positive. You're in your performance zone. But that's actually an impossibility. And what Lowe and Schwartz have said is that the most important thing is how you oscillate, how you move intentionally down to recovery, and how you then, when you recognize when you might be heading towards burnout, or how you recognize when you are in survival in order that you can do something about it. And we are, psychologists always tell people that quite often we're bad at recognizing where we actually are. which is why it's hard then to give people feedback. And when you can see that somebody is feeling depressed or angry or frustrated, because they shoot back at you that they're not, when they are. So how do we help them? We help them by becoming more self-aware. So in order to do that, we need to think. And I'd love you, when you look at your own wheels that you've just developed, your own circles that you've just developed, where does your hospice expect you to be? So just does my employer expect us always to be there? And then just do a quick 100% breakdown of your time, just a quick finger in the air, calibrate the time you spend in each quadrant. So if you think it's 70% in high performance, and I would do this over a week, I'd think about a whole week, and so it really does need to just be stick a finger in the air and do it. Is it, if it's 70% high performance, is it 10% in recovery? Is it 5% in burnout? And is it, and the remainder then sitting there in high negative energy? So just do that for yourself, and then think, right, okay, when I've done my little grid for myself, how might I get more energy? So I'm going to give you 7 minutes each to think, okay, to chat with a friend about how you might get more balance by using the GROW model. And then for those of you who did the Wheel of Life, just go, does this align with my Wheel of Life and what I'm trying to do? Because if it doesn't, then you need to think again. So let's take 15 minutes to do that, 7 minutes each. Make a little chart of where you spend the time, just a percentage, rough guess, and then think in pairs, how could I balance energy more? And any questions, please do pop them to me in chat. So we'll take 15 minutes to do that from now, and I make it 14:22. I'm just going to go backwards for this hospice has just joined, if I can make my slides go backwards, because they seem to be not wanting to go backwards. So I will not make my slides move. If you haven't swapped people, do think now about how the next person has a go. Sure. Now, would anybody like to unmute your phone and just share with us what you've done? If you'd like to unmute and just say what you've been having a chat about, that'd be great. Or pop it in chat.
Oh, I can't work out how to use the chat, Jessica, yet on our phone.
Oh, really? Okay. You click into chat and just click on it, you'll see what it says. But tell us, yeah, share.
I think actually I've just had a real shock. So we did it as a threesome, but we did our own quadrants, etc. And I think what made me quite shocked is the level of survival mode. So we've had quite a discussion about operating in survival mode because of how people outwardly appear and how we think about what survival mode actually means. So, for example, I would have said I operate a reasonably small amount of time, whereas my colleagues, I'm sitting here thinking, gosh, I might have to resuscitate them any minute, and I had no idea. And actually, that's a real shock to me because I'm sitting here thinking, how do we talk about this more in the organisation? How do we make sure that there aren't lots of people about to fall off a cliff if I'm so out of kilter with what may be going on for other people? So yes, I've had a bit of a shock actually.
Well, it's good to realise it because it's the harder thing is to not realise it and then you fall off your cliff and then you go, ooh, look, that's where I was going to. So it's good to get to it now. And thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it. That was really, really brilliant. Has anybody else got anything they want to share? We've got some chat going on. 60% performance, 30% recovery. I do think that the most important thing is this oscillation and this idea that you can't be 100% performing all the time at work. You actually need to bring yourself down to do some of the recovery, and that's what I really love about this model and think it's really, really helpful. Does anybody else want to share anything before I move on? We've got, yes, somebody running around, I can see, back in St Giles.
Yeah, because we've been very honest, I think, in that exercise. So for me, it's the power of being able to trust Sarah to share that information with her and be honest when we're doing something like this. And this is really, really important. So although it was a shock to Sarah, who's my manager, I was actually saying that that helps me as well to go into the recovery zone and be calmer. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and I think some of it's just about having the language, and if you've got the language and the words, then you can talk about it, whereas otherwise it's very hard. So that's another thing that I like about this model is to say, look, I've been in high performance and now I just need to do a bit of recovery. But I think the language is also helpful, as well as the underlying trust and relationship. Thank you so much for sharing that too. Okay, so God willing, I'm going to try and hit the next screen. So I'm just going to try and move us into the next screen, because I was thinking that the next screen would be useful for us to think, okay, we've got Christmas coming up, woohoo! But I don't know about you, but I do think that Christmas is deeply energy draining. In that deeply energy draining thing, we really need to think about, if we're going to be in recovery, what we're going to do. And I was just looking through all the papers that I've trawled through and culled some thoughts which I thought, these are really good. So the first thing to remember is that we always judge other people by their actions, but we look at ourselves by our intentions. And you know that you've been speaking about your intentions when you say to somebody, what I meant to say is, right? So what I meant to say is you being clear about your intention that lay behind the words that then maybe came out slightly wonky. But somebody else, you just go, okay, look, they said X. So I don't know about you, but me and my mum, we have a sparky relationship, I think is a way of calling it. And it is very easy for me when I'm putting my supercritical hat on to forget that she has a positive intention, and it's the way she sees the world. And because she sees the world in a different way to me, doesn't mean she's wrong. She's different. And it's just that for me to remember that is helpful in stopping me just jumping in where I don't need to, because our feelings do not determine our actions. You can step aside from your feelings if you choose to do so. And I think it's really, really helpful to have an image that as you hear somebody saying something, which, and if you're like me, you think, oh, I know that a certain member of my family is going to say a certain thing, and that's going to irritate the pants off me. But I'm setting myself up to feel that, aren't I? So if I think of myself as I am a matador in a ring, and I've got this lovely little cloak, and here comes the bull charging along, and aha, I'm just going to step aside. So for me personally, I find the matador image very helpful in helping me to remember that my feelings don't actually mean I have to behave in a certain way, and I don't have to pick a row, and I can just let it go. A third point, which I think is really particularly important at Christmas, is that to remember that willpower is a limited resource, and it is negatively affected by alcohol. So that's because willpower is limited, and there's some lovely studies by a guy called Roy Baumeister, who feeds people cake and gives some people cake and sugar, and shows that even with cake and sugar, he hasn't done with alcohol, you still run out of willpower. But that's why at the end of the day it's so hard to stick to a diet. So if you want to understand about how you're going to behave, you're much more likely to have a row at the end of a day. So it's worth remembering, right, towards the end of a day, or if I've been sweating by myself alone in the kitchen, that is when I'm going to start getting annoyed with people, because my willpower is limited. So tying in with energy, you might want to think, okay, if I've got to be high performing during this day, when am I going to get those moments for myself that I can recharge my willpower and I can bring myself back to where I need to be? A great thing to do to help you with family rows is to focus on the similarities that you have and not the differences, and the shared experiences in the history are really, really important in doing that. And you can get to that by doing the when we. Do you remember when we? And starting off with those kind of things, because that brings you together. And as we saw at the beginning in the Casita model, family networks really matter, and how you draw on your family. So it's if we can't bring our country together, and we can't bring our families together, what are we trying to do? So I do think it all starts at home, and how to bring a family together is then how you bring a business together and an organisation together, and who knows, maybe we can bring our country together too. So I'd love you to, just before we go, just think, okay, Christmas is coming up. I would like to be a certain way at Christmas. What is one commitment that I could make, which I could keep, about Christmas? So again, just let's do this very briefly, a couple of minutes, and then we'll be done. And I'm going to make a commitment to you that I am going to have a lovely, harmonious day with my mum. And I'm putting that in a positive, rather than saying I'm not going to row, because that sets me up to row. Right? So we like to put things, frame things positively. I am going to commit to having a wonderful day with my mum on Christmas Day, and I will come back to you in the first week of January and let you know whether that was the case. So 1 minute, then we'll say goodbye. And meanwhile, if there's anything you want to share, please just stick it into the chat. Okay, so thank you very much everybody for being on today, and thank you for working with each other. Thank you for your chat, your comments, and sharing. I really do appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you. Happy Christmas, and see you in January. Happy New Year as well. Bye.